next, moving on to the classification of removable partial dentures. Now there is only one classification which is very much popular and generalized, which we consider as a gold standard, where we want to communicate with our fellow colleagues, seniors, or with the lab technician, so that we can understand or talk in a scientific way. And that is why these classifications are put forward. So starting with the classification of partially edentulous arches. So the classification of partially edentulous arches, first thing which we would discuss about is the need. Why do we need a classification? What is the necessity of bringing a classification system, right? So first thing, that you can formulate a good treatment plan, right? So first thing which is necessary is that you should be able to identify the condition and then properly formulate a treatment plan, adding or deducting the factors which are important, right? Then to ease the design and fabrication, ease the design and fabrication. Then we have to communicate. Yes, communication is very important. Then to design a denture according to the occlusal load. Design according to the load. Okay, so that is why we need a classification. Now what are the requirements if we want to put forward a classification system? What should a classification system have or consist of? Okay, so the classification system, first thing, you should be, as soon as I say class 1, 2, 3, 4, you should be able to visualize that image in your mind. Okay, so it should allow visualization of that partially edentulous arch. Allow visualization of that partially edentulous arch. Then it should allow differentiation. You should be able to differentiate between the types of partially edentulous arches. So differentiation should be very much easy. Okay, then we have serve as a guide to design the prosthesis. Serve as a guide to design the prosthesis. Okay, and lastly, universally accepted. That is very important. Suppose you are having one system in India and that guy somewhere in Canada is using some another system, then that won't work out, right? So it should be universally accepted. All the people of the dental fraternity who are associated with removable partial dentures, designing, treatment planning, fabrication, whatever it is, they should be able to communicate in one universal classification system, right? Now when we talk about the most common classification over here, we have is our Kennedy's classification, right? So Kennedy's classification we have been studying from our very second year preclinical prosthetics, right? So I'll just quickly go through it. Class 1 is a bilateral edentulous area, okay, located posterior to the remaining natural teeth, right? So there are two edentulous areas on both the side behind the teeth which are present. Similarly, if you have a single edentulous area, it becomes Kennedy's class 2. This was class 1, this class 2. Now if you have a edentulous area which is bounded by teeth on both the sides, that becomes class 3. Class 4, unique of all, most unique thing, on the either side of the midline you have edentulous area on both the sides, but it is anterior to the remaining teeth. First two were posterior to the remaining teeth, third was anterior and posterior, both the sides teeth are present. Fourth is edentulous area anterior to the remaining teeth. Now Applegate was the one who came up with the modifications. Okay, Applegate came with modifications of class 5 and class 6 of Kennedy's. So class 5, what he is saying, that edentulous area bound anteriorly and posteriorly by the natural teeth in which the anterior abutment is not suitable for support, and basically it is like a class 3, but this anterior teeth is not suitable for support. This is a culprit. It is not providing enough amount of support than this one. So it is different from your class 3 because the anterior teeth is not adequate enough to give support. Class 6 is what? An edentulous area in which again it is like a class 3 situation. Okay, but here the teeth are totally able to give the support to the RPT, that is class 6. The image are interchanged. Okay, the 5 image goes for the 6 one, where both the teeth are strong. Here one teeth is weak, one is strong, so they cannot provide adequate support. So this is Kennedy's classification. Now there is one more important thing which comes along with the Kennedy's classification, that is your Applegate's rule, right? So Applegate gave 8 set of rules. Okay, if you want to classify any partially edentulous arch according to the Kennedy's classification, you need to follow these 8 set of rules given by Applegate. So the first one is classification should follow rather than precede extractions. So what does it mean? In this diagram, if you see, yeah, sorry, yeah, suppose these two teeth are decayed, these 3 are decayed, these 2 are also decayed. So I am going to extract all these 5 teeth. Okay, 4 5. Now after extracting these 5 teeth only, I can determine the classification. So the first rule is the classification should follow what? Extraction rather than precede them. Okay, rather than preceding. Okay, now second rule, rule number 2, if the third molars are missing, and not to be replaced, then they are not considered in the classification. So if you are having a patient whose third molars are missing and you are not going to replace third molar, usually we replace till second molar, right? So if the third molars are missing and not to be replaced, then they are not considered in the classification. Missing, third molars are missing and not replacing, then not included in the classification, so that you will not consider that in the classification. Now rule number 3, if third molar is present and used as an abutment, if you want to use that as an abutment, if it is present and used as abutment, then it is included in classification. Okay, very easy. First is the classification should follow extraction rather than precede them. Second, if the third molar is missing and you're not going to replace, then do not include that in the classification. Fourth is if the third molars are present and you are using them as an abutment, then you have to include them in the classification. Now same goes for second molars, like this, what it was for third molar. Second molar is missing and not replaced, then not included in classification. Okay, very easy. Rule number 5, the posterior most edentulous area determines the classification. Suppose I have these 3 teeth missing and these 2 teeth missing, so I will take in account the posterior most edentulous area. Okay, posterior most edentulous area. So the posterior edentulous area determines the classification. Okay, determines the, so now in this case I will consider this one single edentulous area as class 2. Okay, and for this edentulous area I will tell. Now rule number 6. So rule number 6 is any other edentulous area than the main class is considered as modification space. Any other edentulous area rather than main class is considered as modification space. So it will become class 2 mod 1, because this is one modification space. If one more teeth is missing, it becomes modification 2. So like that, and the space is taken into the account, not the number of missing teeth in the modification space. So if there are 2 additional edentulous area, it is mod 2, not the number of teeth which are missing. Okay, so the number of edentulous space is considered, okay, not the number of teeth missing. Rule number 8, very easy, no modification in class 4, because suppose anterior like this is class 4 edentulous area, right? Now if I create one here also, now this will determine classification. Why? Because it is rule number 5, posterior edentulous area determines classification. That is why there cannot be any modification in class 4, because you will contradict the previous rules if you give modification in class 4. So that was about your rules of Kennedy, rules of Applegate to determine the Kennedy's class of the partially edentulous arch, and this completes our first chapter regarding the introduction and classification of removable partial dentures.